The stars have seen it all. The stars have seen it all. They've watched civilizations rise from cosmic dust and crumble back into it. But never in all their silent eons had they seen a warning carved into the fabric of space itself. Yet there it was, glowing in quantum script across the edge of Sector 7739. A message so chilling that even the most fearless explorers would turn their ships around. No questions asked. But Ambassador Theron of the Kashari Dominion? He wasn't one for warnings. His people were conquerors. Their crimson warships were the stuff of nightmares across 50 systems. With 6 powerful limbs and a mind that processed battle strategies in microseconds, Theron saw himself as the pinnacle of galactic evolution. And today, he stood before the Grand Assembly, a council of 847 species, each more ancient and wiser than the last. But to Theron, wisdom was just a polite word for cowardice. Presiding over the assembly was High Chancellor Maravis, her translucent body shifting through colors that mirrored her thoughts. She had led this council for 3,000 years, a witness to the endless cycle of empires. When Theron raised his primary claw to speak, she knew exactly what he would say. They always did. Honored members, Theron's voice boomed, instantly translated into 847 languages. My fleet has completed its surveys. Our expansion continues. However, I must raise a concern. He conjured a holographic star map. A vast, empty region glowed an ominous red. This empty space, he declared, holds thousands of habitable worlds, rich resources, and strategic choke points. Yet no one claims it. No one enters it. I ask you, why does this assembly allow such valuable territory to remain abandoned? The chamber erupted. Hisses, harmonic warnings, clicks of disapproval. Some representatives simply disconnected their translators, refusing to even hear this discussion. Theron looked around, genuinely baffled by the visceral reaction. Maravis raised one crystalline appendage, and an immediate silence fell. Her form shifted to a deep, mournful blue. That sector is not abandoned, Ambassador Theron. It is occupied. By humans. Humans? Theron repeated the word, his translator struggling with the unfamiliar term. I have studied the registry of all known spacefaring species. That name is nowhere in our databases. Are they primitive? Isolated? Elder Voran of the Synthetic Collective spoke, his mechanical voice resonating with centuries of data. They are neither primitive nor isolated. They are simply separate, by their choice and by necessity. Theron's combat instincts tingled. You speak in riddles, Elder. If they exist, why are they not part of this assembly? Do they lack the technology, the political structure? They lack the willingness to compromise, bubbled Ambassador Quilris from her containment field. And that, Ambassador, makes them more dangerous than any fleet we have ever faced. Dangerous? Theron laughed, a sound like grinding metal plates. The Kashari Dominion has never retreated from danger. We have shattered siege lines that held for decades. What makes these humans so different? Maravis floated down from her podium, her form radiating a profound sense of warning and perhaps regret. 743 years ago, humanity emerged from their home system. They were young, brilliant, and driven by something we had never seen before. They called it ambition tempered by caution, hope balanced by a readiness for the worst. We welcomed them, as we do all species. We invited them to join us. And they refused? Theron interjected, intrigued. Not at first, Maravis corrected. They attended councils, established embassies. They seemed eager to learn. But then we explained the rules, the foundational laws of this assembly. She paused, her light dimming. You see, Ambassador, every species here has agreed to certain limitations. We have banned planet-destroying weapons. We limit our military production. We submit to arbitration. We fight our wars with restraint and honor. These seem like reasonable rules, Theron conceded. Humans disagreed, Elder Voran stated. They told us they would follow one rule above all others. They would never fire the first shot. They would seek peace whenever possible, but they would not, under any circumstances, limit their ability to defend themselves. Theron's tactical mind raced. They refused disarmament protocols? It was more than that, Quilris added, her voice heavy with remembered trauma. They refused to even discuss limitations. They said their own history, written in blood across their homeworld, had taught them a brutal lesson. Any civilization that depends on the mercy of others for its survival will eventually face extinction. They would prepare for the absolute worst, while always hoping for the best. So you cast them out? Theron guessed. We tried to persuade them, Moravis said softly. We showed them our 1,000 years of relative peace. We demonstrated how cooperation had reduced conflicts across the galaxy. We offered them everything if they would just agree to reasonable restrictions on their military. And their response? Theron pressed. Moravis's colors shifted to a dark, violent purple, the shade of remembered fear. Their ambassador, a female named Catherine Blackwood, stood right here, in this very chamber. Her words still echo in our archives. She said, "We come in peace and we desperately want friendship. But our peace will be built on our own strength, not on the promises of others. We will be good neighbors. We will honor our agreements. We will even defend those who call for our aid. But we will not castrate our civilization just to make you feel comfortable. If that means we must stand apart, then so be it." Bold words, Theron acknowledged, a flicker of respect in his voice. But words without power are just noise. Then came the demonstration, Elder Voran stated flatly. 3 months after humanity withdrew, the Zethran horde decided to test them. The Zethran were not part of our assembly. They were raiders, 50,000 warships strong, who had terrorized the Outer Rim for generations. They had annihilated 17 civilizations completely. When they learned of humanity's isolation, they saw an opportunity. Theron leaned forward, his warrior's mind fully engaged. What happened? The Zethran sent their entire fleet into human space, Quilris whispered, the memory still chilling her. 50,000 ships against humanity's 12 colonies. The Zethran broadcast their intentions for all to hear. They would take the human worlds, enslave their population, and steal their technology. For them, it was supposed to be just another simple conquest. The assembly chamber grew still, the silence almost a physical weight as the elder species prepared to continue their story. I saw it myself, ambassadors from a dozen worlds shrinking back into their environmental pods, as if the memory alone was a tangible threat. Moravis, the elder Lumina, gestured to the central projector. A hologram flickered to life. My processors spun as I took in the image. A colossal armada of angular black ships. They were the Zethran horde, a name whispered in fear across the galaxy. They moved like a cosmic plague, so numerous they blotted out the stars. The Zethran were confident, Moravis began, her voice resonating with the chilling cadence of a storyteller. Their intelligence reported that humanity possessed only 300 defensive platforms and maybe 800 warships scattered thinly across their territory. For the Zethran, the math was simple. 50,000 against 800. They expected an immediate surrender or a swift, brutal conquest. But humans. Elder Voran's mechanical voice cut in, carrying an odd, almost organic tremor. They don't think like other species. He was right. My own combat algorithms were already struggling. The Zethran entered human space expecting fortifications, defensive lines, the usual tactics of a civilization bracing for impact. Instead, they found nothing. Every human ship had vanished. Every station was a ghost town. It was as if humanity had simply abandoned their home without firing a single shot. My mind raced. They ran? I asked, the words escaping before I could stop them. But you said they were dangerous. They didn't run, Quilris corrected, the bubbles in her aquatic containment field streaming rapidly. They were repositioning. You see, the Zethran made a fatal assumption. They believed humans would defend their territory the way everyone else does. Protect fixed positions, hold ground, preserve infrastructure. But humans had studied warfare for their entire violent existence. They understood a fundamental truth that the Zethran, for all their conquests, had never grasped. "And what was that?" I prompted, leaning forward, all pretense of diplomatic detachment gone. "That territory is meaningless," Moravis said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Buildings can be rebuilt. Stations can be reconstructed. But an enemy fleet, once destroyed, is a permanent victory. So humanity did something no one had ever seen before. They let the Zethran spread out. They let them advance deep into their space, let them believe victory was assured. They let them grow comfortable, careless." The hologram shifted. I saw the Zethran fleet dispersed, landing parties descending on deserted worlds, salvage teams picking through empty stations like vultures on a corpse that had already been stripped clean. The Zethran were celebrating their effortless victory. And then, the image changed. My own respiratory systems went into overdrive. From behind a gas giant, moving with a precision that spoke of months, maybe years, of meticulous planning, came the human fleet. Not 800 ships, but 8,000. Every single vessel humanity possessed had gathered in secret. They had towed entire weapons platforms into position, launched millions of automated defense drones, and something else. Something that made the sensors recording this footage malfunction for a moment. "They call them fusion lances," Elder Voran explained. "Directed beams of stellar fire that can cut through any shielding we know. But that wasn't what truly destroyed the Zethran. The lances were just the opening move." The holographic recording played on, and even though I was watching events from 7 centuries ago, my tactical mind recoiled in sheer horror. This wasn't combat. It was an execution. The human fleet moved as one, a single, perfectly coordinated organism. They didn't fire randomly. They had analyzed the Horde's entire command structure, identified every flagship, every communication relay, every single ship that held a shred of operational importance. In the first 30 seconds of the engagement, every Zethran command ship simply ceased to exist. The fusion lances carved through them before their shields could even fully power up. Leaderless, the Zethran horde fractured, descending into chaos. And that's when the humans revealed their true, terrifying strategy. They had mapped every Zethran vessel's trajectory, Moravis said, her luminescent colors cycling through patterns of remembered awe and fear. They had calculated where each ship would be at every single moment. They didn't fight a battle. They executed an extermination protocol. I watched as the human ships released millions of tiny objects into the void, each no larger than my smallest claw. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Zethran fleet began to disintegrate. Ship after ship exploded from within. The small objects were relativistic kill missiles, each one accelerating to a fraction of the speed of light before impact. The kinetic energy alone was enough to vaporize any target they touched. The battle lasted 4 hours, Quilris said, her voice barely a whisper in the silent chamber. When it was over, the Zethran horde had been reduced from 50,000 ships to 17. Those 17 were allowed to escape. Humanity made sure they broadcast what they had witnessed to every corner of the galaxy. 17 out of 50,000, I repeated, my processors struggling to quantify such a lopsided victory. But surely the Zethran rallied. They had terrorized the galaxy for generations. They must have had reserves. Oh, they tried, Elder Voran confirmed. 3 years later, the Zethran gathered every last ship they could muster. 15,000 vessels, the final remnants of their once mighty horde. They swore revenge. They broadcast their intent to attack humanity again, to wipe them from existence no matter the cost. And the humans? I asked, my voice strained. The humans sent a single ship, Moravis said, her colors shifting to a pattern of pure disbelief, even after all these centuries. One vessel. It entered Zethran space carrying a message. The human ambassador aboard was a male named Thomas Chen. He requested a diplomatic meeting with the Zethran leadership. They met with him? I asked, incredulous. They captured his ship, Quilris corrected. They saw it as arrogance or perhaps stupidity. They dragged Ambassador Chen before their ruling council, ready to execute him as a show of defiance before launching their final, desperate attack. Instead, he gave them a gift. The hologram shifted one last time. It showed a lone human male, standing calmly before a council of massive armored beings who radiated pure hatred. The human, Chen, smiled. He reached into his case and pulled out a small data crystal. He told them this crystal contained the complete specifications for every weapon humanity had used against them. Moravis continued. The fusion lances, the relativistic missiles, the coordination algorithms, everything. He said they were welcome to study it, to understand exactly what they had faced. And then, he told them something else. The air in the chamber was electric. What did he say? I pressed. He said, these are the weapons we used 3 years ago. We have not been idle. We have developed 17 new weapon systems since then, each one an order of magnitude more effective than what destroyed your fleet. We will never share the specifications for these new systems because we hope to never use them. But know this, if you attack us again, we will not stop at destroying your fleet. We will follow you home. We will find every Zethran colony, every station, every last ship, and we will end your species, not out of hatred, but because you will have proven you are incapable of peaceful coexistence. Absolute silence. The only sounds were the hums and clicks of life support systems. The Zethran never attacked again, Elder Vorin concluded. In fact, they petitioned to join this very assembly within the year. They agreed to every limitation we proposed. They decommissioned 90% of their military. They became one of our most peaceful members, all because one human stood before them and made them understand a simple, terrifying truth. What truth? I asked, though a part of my core programming already knew the answer. Moravis's colors settled into a somber, respectful gray. That humanity's refusal to limit their weapons was never about conquest. It was about ensuring no one would ever be foolish enough to start a war with them. They prepared for total war so thoroughly that war itself became unthinkable. And in that quiet chamber, surrounded by the galaxy's oldest and wisest, I finally understood. I understood the fear, the respect, and the reason why. When humanity speaks, everyone listens. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into galactic history. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next transmission. Until next time, stay curious. The holographic display shimmered and vanished, plunging the assembly chamber into a heavy, expectant dimness. Theron stood frozen, his 6 limbs locked as his mind reeled from the visions he'd just witnessed. Around him, the other ambassadors remained silent, a silent consensus to allow the newcomer, the Kashari, to process the weight of history that had just been laid upon him. Finally, Ambassador Quilris broke the silence, her voice now softer, almost gentle. You asked why we avoid Sector 7739, Ambassador Theron. Now you understand. It is not an avoidance born of fear, but a profound respect born from wisdom. Humans have kept their promise. In 743 years, they have never once fired the first shot. They trade honestly with any who approach their borders with peaceful intent. In fact, 36 species now have formal treaties with them, and humanity has honored every single clause, every single agreement, without exception. Moravis, a being of living crystal, drifted closer to Theron. Her multifaceted form caught the dim light, fracturing it into a cascade of subtle, shifting rainbows. But they have also kept their other promise, she stated, her voice resonating with ancient authority. When the Korvathi swarm attempted to enslave a colony on the very edge of human space, humanity intervened. The colony wasn't even human. It belonged to the Melendri, a peaceful farming species. The Korvathi fleet was immense, 12,000 ships. It took humanity precisely 11 minutes to reduce that number to 0. 11 minutes, Theron repeated, the number a whisper on his breath. It was an incomprehensible figure for a fleet engagement of that magnitude. The official recordings show that the humans spent the first 8 of those minutes attempting to establish diplomatic contact. Elder Vorin added, his synthetic voice devoid of emotion, yet carrying immense gravity. They offered the Korvathi multiple opportunities to withdraw peacefully, It was only when every single offer was rejected that they engaged. And when they did, their response was absolute. They did not wound or disable the enemy ships. They did not take prisoners. They simply removed the threat completely and utterly. To do anything less would have required them to maintain an extended military presence, something they refused to do outside their own designated space. A smaller ambassador from a species Theron didn't recognize spoke up. Her voice, filtered through a translation field, emerged as a melodic whisper. My people, the Shandari, made contact with the humans 70 years ago. We were refugees, fleeing the crimson plague that had consumed our worlds. We had nothing to offer them. No resources, no advanced technology, nothing they needed. We were simply asking for a temporary sanctuary, a place to rest while we searched the stars for a new home. Her voice caught, thick with an emotion that transcended the digital translation. Humanity gave us 3 entire star systems, not as a temporary shelter, but as permanent worlds. They even helped us terraform them, painstakingly altering the environments to match our unique biological needs. And they asked for nothing in return. Nothing but our friendship. When I asked their liaison why they would be so generous to complete strangers, she told me something I have never forgotten. What did she say? Theron asked, his own voice now barely a whisper, drawn into the story. The Shandari ambassador's voice trembled slightly. She said, Our history is filled with stories of refugees turned away, of desperate people denied sanctuary who then perished. We carry those shameful moments like scars on our collective soul. We swore that if we ever had the power to help others in need, we would do so without hesitation, because we remember what it felt like to be powerless. That human female had tears in her eyes when she spoke, not tears of sadness, but from some deep, profound well of feeling that even now I am still trying to understand. Maravis's crystalline form glowed with warm, gentle hues. This is what makes humans unique, Ambassador Theron. They are not a species defined by a single trait. They are capable of both extraordinary violence and extraordinary compassion, sometimes within the same breath. They meticulously prepare for the worst of all possibilities, while desperately hoping for the best of outcomes. They are simultaneously the most dangerous and the most trustworthy species we have ever encountered. Theron felt his entire worldview shifting, a fundamental recalibration of assumptions he had carried his entire life. But why do they remain separate? If they are so honorable, if they help others so willingly, why not join this assembly? Why not benefit from our combined knowledge and our collective protection? Because they have seen what our kind of limitations do to civilizations over time, Elder Voran responded, a hint of something akin to sadness in his synthesized voice. They study galactic history with an obsessive focus. They noticed a pattern: species who join our assembly, who agree to our rules of engagement and our restrained philosophies, gradually lose the ability to defend themselves against truly existential threats. We have grown comfortable, Ambassador. We fight our small civilized wars with honor and restraint, but we have forgotten how to face an enemy that shows no mercy, accepts no surrender, and seeks only total destruction. Humans believe such enemies still exist, Quilris continued, her tone somber. Out there, beyond our explored space, in the dark regions we have not yet mapped, they believe there are threats we cannot even imagine. They may be wrong. We all hope they are wrong. But they refuse to gamble their entire species' survival on hope alone. A profound silence fell across the chamber, thick with unspoken thoughts. It was Theron who broke it, his voice changed, humbled by the depth of his new understanding. What happens if someone enters their space uninvited? My people, the Kashari, we have expansionist policies. Our fleet admirals are ambitious. What if one of them decides to test humanity's boundaries? The ambient temperature in the chamber seemed to drop, a chilling sensation that defied the environmental controls. Maravis positioned herself directly in front of Theron, her ancient presence radiating centuries of accumulated wisdom and a sudden stark gravity. Then you must stop them, she said, her voice absolute. Because humanity has made their policy unequivocally clear. Their space is marked with warnings in every known language and dialect, and you must understand. Those warnings are not threats. They are acts of mercy. Any ship that crosses into their territory without explicit permission receives one final warning, broadcast on all frequencies. Turn back now or be destroyed. They give you 30 seconds to comply. Not because they are cruel, but because their calculations show that any vessel with faster-than-light capability can reverse its course within that exact time frame. And if someone ignores the warning? Theron asked, though a cold dread in his core told him he already knew the answer. Then that ship ceases to exist, Elder Vorin stated flatly. Not disabled, not captured, completely and utterly destroyed, because humans learned a bitter lesson from their own history that they will never, ever forget. When you show mercy to those who would harm you, you only encourage others to test your resolve. But when you respond to aggression with overwhelming, immediate, and total force, you teach a lesson that echoes across the galaxy. In the last 700 years, exactly 317 ships have ignored humanity's warnings. None of them ever sent another transmission. Theron felt his ingrained warrior instincts clashing with his newfound respect. But that seems excessive. Does it? Maravis asked gently. Consider the mathematics, Ambassador. 317 ships destroyed as a lesson versus the millions that might have been lost in a wider conflict if humanity's resolve was ever seen as weak. Those 317 ships became a warning that saved countless more lives. Is it harsh? Yes. Is it effective? Absolutely. Humanity does not make threats. They make promises, and they keep them. Every single time. The Shindari ambassador spoke one last time, her melodic voice now filled with a powerful conviction. I have lived among humans, Ambassador Theron. I have walked their cities and shared meals with their families. They are not monsters. They laugh and cry and love with an intensity that can sometimes be overwhelming to other species. They create art that moves the soul and music that resonates across all cultural boundaries. But they also carry within them a capacity for absolute, unyielding determination that I have never witnessed anywhere else. When they commit to something, whether it is protecting their children or defending their principles, nothing in this universe can turn them from their path. Nothing. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the cosmos. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tales from the far reaches of space. We'll see you in the next one.